with another episode. I hope this isn't copyrighted. What's up? It's me, Andrew. There's Chris. I'm gonna start doing the intros like that. I'm tired of the hey, welcome back. I'm Andrew, and
Okay,
I
I was just
like.
about to say like it's kind of like watching one of your favorite artists early on in their career like develop their style is, and I feel so privileged to have a front row seat to it. So please feel free.
Bump, bump, bump. Okay. Yeah. So listen. I think the only reason I'm hitting you with some music, I'm just really excited for today's episode. Like, I'm excited for most episodes because we don't really get boring guests. But I
Thankfully,
don't know. Today, I almost feel like Chris booked the guests, but I feel like I am like almost cheating with like the guests we have, that it's not like a no NPCs episode or something. I'm like, there's no way we get to talk about this today on this show.
true. Yeah, sometimes I try and be a good friend and do things for Andrew that aren't just guilty pleasures of mine. Some of my favorite artists or actors of mine. And so yeah, this one I guess is a little bit for both of us because man, we're just going to jump right into it. This is Talking with Andrew and Chris. Thank you guys again so much for coming back week in and week out. 6 months strong at this point and not stopping. So, yeah,
Wait, 6 months?
of consistency. That promise we
Oh, you're
made to the
right.
fans to,
You're right. I forgot that we didn't do that like on January or in
yeah, that's
January.
just how we roll, man. No one,
Yeah.
how many
Listen,
January promises have you made that haven't come through? Let's
listen.
just,
No more New Year's resolutions. You got to do a December resolution. That way, you mess up during December, and then the New Year starts, and you're like, well, now I know how I messed up. Let's keep going. So that's what we're doing.
right, it's called planning. You get ahead of your New Year's resolution. I like that. It's pretty
Hashtag
good.
we just started using Google Calendar. What up?
True, very true. That's how we knew to be extra on point for today's episode. We're speaking with an incredibly talented. I don't even want to just call him a musician because I mean we'll
Right.
get into it, but he's so much more than that. I mean, this man does what I believe, and not that I work in the games industry, but video game companies have departments for, and I'm sure there's different subsections inside of those departments, and somehow I mean, he gets it done, and not only does he get it done, he's masterful at his craft. I
Yeah.
am very excited to chat with Darren Korb of Supergiant Games, and amongst many other things, and we'll unpack that. So, Darren,
Yes.
welcome to the show, man. Thank you so much.
Hey,
Woo!
thanks for having me.
Hell yeah.
For sure,
As you
dude.
can tell, we're excited.
No, this is gonna be really good, dude. So I stumbled across your games from, and I'm sure as most people have, through the No Clip documentaries. I'm a huge fan of No Clip. They're actually the only YouTube account that I have a Patreon for. Only the $5 tier. I wish I could get my name as one of the producers. Sorry to all the rest of them. Maybe you can send my condolences and be like, hey, look, he's doing his best. Don't hate on him too much. But
I'm sure they're not mad because you're giving them $5. Like they're not going to be upset
Yeah,
about that. Yeah,
exactly.
they
no,
have a tier
totally.
for that. So,
For sure. And they're just so incredibly talented, and they seem to work with a lot of incredibly talented people as well, man. Like one of the things that I found so inspiring and interesting, Andrew and I, we're musicians, aspiring podcasters, aspiring musicians, but certainly we're still trying to build a foundation and get off the ground. But we got to watch you do that through these no clip documentaries. But of course, in those documentaries, there is a shared story and a shared experience. And so what I'm really looking forward to today is, since this is a music show, is sort of getting your version of that story, and even before that, maybe even what got Darren into music, what were his first inspirations, like take us all the way back, and I'm talking like way back, and sort of like walk us up to the present day, and then we'll get into all like the really cool fun stuff like Hades and all that. But
yeah, for sure. So I think my first real engagement with music was when I was probably about 5 years old. I started doing musical theater as a little kid and singing and being in plays and stuff. And I had a lot of
Nice.
I really enjoyed that, and I did that sort of all through high school, and that was one of my interests growing up. And I as a kid, I kind of took like a couple of weeks of keyboard lessons and wasn't really into it and kind of bounced off of it. And then around 10 or 11, I picked up the guitar and started really getting into that and writing songs and playing in bands all through kind of middle school and onward. Um, and and took some guitar lessons. in high school, I ended up getting really into recording and became kind of obsessed with that. And that became, in addition to the sort of songwriting and playing in bands, the actual multi-track recording process was something that was really fascinating to me, and I felt like it kind of tickled all the different parts of my brain at once. It's a creative process that's super technical, so you have to kind of, you know get in the zone, and and it's really fun.
There's stuff to figure out.
Yeah, there's stuff to figure out. Yeah, exactly. And it's like, I have this creative idea. What is the technical way I can execute the creative idea, right? So it's the full mind.
The
Uh,
scientific process, but for music.
yeah, exactly. So I really really dig that, and so I ended up going to school at NYU Gallatin, which is individualized major program. So I kind of did music production, music business, and then like humanities stuff with a little bit of songwriting and poetry and all that stuff mixed in there. Um, and after school, I was living in New York, trying to um, kind of take whatever music related gig I could, paid or unpaid, trying to just sort of amass whatever experience I could. I was like in a bunch of Craigslist bands for a little while. I and just trying to like see, get exposed to a bunch of different types of musicians, and play with a bunch of different people, and
And
I
what year is
interned.
this that you're sort of kicking around in New York after college?
Yeah, so like 2007. um and yeah, because I finished school, I guess in 2006, and I walked in 2007 or something. I forget, but I took a semester off, so it was a weird finish there. But and so yeah, it was mostly 2007 was the beginning of that stuff, and I was interning in a recording studio for a few years, which started while I was in school. um I interned at this studio called Threshold Music in Midtown, which is like it's a small studio that is a really good spot to learn. I think it was like a medium studio, I'll say, right? It wasn't one of the Avatar or like one of the big label studios, but some label bands came through there, and and it was a good spot to learn. Though I feel like mostly I didn't learn too much as an intern. It's a rough, for whatever reason. I feel like it's one of those things where people who know stuff, like the engineers, often are like kung fu masters that don't teach their students like the good moves, because they're afraid they're gonna destroy them with it or something. Like it's like such a competitive field. I just feel like they don't. People are really guarded with the knowledge, and you'll be sweeping up and emptying trash cans and making coffee for 6 months, and one day you'll be in the control room while somebody's doing a mix, and it'll be like, okay, I'll drop a little knowledge bomb on you, and like
Yeah,
give
and
you
they're like,
like
when they
one.
say the mix is wet, that means it's got a lot of reverb. Write
They'll
that
give you
one
like
down.
one. I remember I remember once I got like one tip from this dude who's a good engineer. I mean, he was doing like one of the dudes in the studio who was doing working on some big projects. He had just worked on the Paramore Riot record. He did like drum editing on that record or something. And he said, all right, so I like to get the drums and the vocals balanced and before I add anything else, and then you just kind of find space for everything else and the rest. And I was like, oh, okay, all right, that's an interesting approach. Yeah, that seems cool.
Okay.
um
Gotta write that down.
but like, you know that's one of like a
Right.
handful of
How
things.
long were you there that
I
that's
was
what you
there for
got?
years. I mean, I was
Yeah.
and
Kind of
but the
sounds
thing.
like school.
Yeah, but the thing, so the thing that was the most valuable to me from my time being in a studio, I mean, I love studios. I love recording studios, and don't get me wrong, they're a sort of a magical place that I really respect. But the thing that I took away was that I don't really need a recording studio to make cool music. And especially around that time, I just kind of gotten into Logic as my DAW, and was really had my mind blown by the sort of incredible capabilities of that. And so I just really doubled down on my home production, and trying to get good at that, and trying to figure out how to just use my my like two mics that I had in my apartment and my DAW, and whatever instruments to make something that sounded cool. um and so I really started focusing on that around 2007. um and I think sometime maybe that year or maybe the year later, Logic 8 came out, and that was kind of a game changer. Because that was the one that really they went nuts with all the presets, like full preset signal paths. And if you have an idea for how you want something to sound, you can just type in a word, any sort of descriptive word or whatever. I mean, and then you have a whole signal path that will be that sound more or less, and then you can kind of tweak it from there. And it's so much faster as a workflow and easier than, you know, dialing in a guitar sound for 90 minutes or whatever on, it's just like 30 seconds versus 90 minutes. It's the big savings, so,
Right.
so
Was that the one where Steve Jobs had John Mayer like whip up that like 4-minute song to like debut
oh, I don't
the
remember. That's funny.
yeah, it was something like he had John Mayer come up and like whip up a song for Jamie's looking it up real quick for
Yep.
for a song, and they're like, and Steve Jobs was like, look how fast he did that, and I
Yeah,
assumed it
yeah.
was like the presets just hearing you speak about that,
That's
but
awesome. Yeah, I mean, so it was kind of a game changer for me. And during that same period, I was working on my production. I wrote a musical with my brother. It was like a power pop musical, and I recorded a demo album for that. So just production practice. And I did a couple of small gigs. Like I wrote a song for a little indie movie, um where a lot of that kind of work at that time, that the work I did get was mostly, we have this known song, this famous song that we would like to use, but it is too expensive. Can you please make a thing that sounds almost exactly like it, but is legally not it? Um, we really like Clocks by Coldplay or whatever. Like, can you just make a Clocks like,
I've gotten the hey, so we might be able to do a car commercial, and you got to try and sound like the Black Keys without sounding like the Black Keys, and
without
that's pretty
being
difficult because the Black Keys kind of sound like everything without
yeah,
sounding like the Black Keys.
yeah.
And yeah, totally, I hear where you're coming from.
Yeah, I mean, and so I had several opportunities like that. I did a couple of little spots for an infomercial, or a couple of commercials, and tiny little things. But those I saw as really, really, really good production practice, because the exercise of trying to emulate a particular sound without creating the same piece of music, I saw it as a production exercise. And so I'm like, well, if I can just do the exact production of this recording to the best of my ability, no matter what the musical content is, it's going to kind of feel like it anyway. um was sort of my my approach. So yeah, anyway, I did that. I was playing gigs here and there as a hired gun, every once in a while. I played guitar in an R&B band for a minute, and just did some cool, just random New York stuff. Um, and then in 2009, my good buddy since childhood, who we grew up together, played D&D together all through our lives, and played in bands together. He's my drummer for the longest time. He was working at EA at a college, and he was there for a couple of years, and he decided to strike out, with another friend, Gavin Simon, and found Supergiant. And when he was doing that, he just asked me to do all the audio, because he thought I could probably pull it off. Um, and that was it. I didn't have any qualifications really, other than some musical experience. Um, but yeah, and then I've been doing it ever since.
Yeah, and that friend wouldn't happen to be Amir Rao, would it?
Amir Rao, yep, that is the friend.
Heard of him.
Very
Heard
That's
cool,
of
very
him.
that's
cool.
the guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. So, it's funny. Like before we jump too much into the Supergiant story, I mean, you're from California, right?
Yep.
So you're arguably in the music. I mean, I know Nashville's like the music capital of the world. Whatever, it's like 90% country, so I feel like that's a little misleading. But okay, I can't really change that.
That's just like how they say the Cowboys are America's team. It's like, who decided that?
Exactly. But you're arguably in like one of, at least we can definitely say one of the music capital locations. Again, I don't know how close you are to Los Angeles.
Not. I'm in Northern California. I'm in the Bay Area. I grew up in San Jose.
Okay. So then why move, but still then why move to New York as opposed to Los Angeles? Was it that you just needed the complete change, or what was the sort of the impetus behind that decision? Because I feel like it's got to be easier to sort of get going where at least you have some roots.
Yeah. So I was just really excited by New York as a place. I remember visiting there as a kid, and it really made a big impression on me. I was probably like 12 or 13 when I went to visit New York the first time, and I just never been anywhere quite like it. The sort of energy of that place was really exciting to me, and as a person who was kind of a night owl, the the idea that you could just stuff was happening all the time, and you could just you could go somewhere in the middle of the night, and it's, some stuff is available to to do, um, and just the sort of wealth of incredible food, and the fact that it's like a walking town, like that was really awesome. And I don't know, I just kind of,
Everything is walkable.
yeah, exactly. And I just kind of fell in love with the city, and knew, okay, well, I need to spend some time here. Like, this is something I really want to do. So I only ended up applying to places in New York for college, just because I knew that's where I wanted to be. And luckily I managed to get into Gallatin, and yeah, it was a really good place for me to be, because I was sort of uninterested in a traditional college experience based on what I understood those to be. And one of the things that was attractive to me about NYU was that there's no campus. You just live in New York City, and then you go to classes at NYU. And so I was really, I was just anxious to begin doing that. I think, and so that's part of what was attractive about it to me.
Totally. I did a short stint at Brooklyn College studying film before Andrew and I's old band took me elsewhere, and I so desperately wanted to move to the city that never sleeps until I realized, hey, I'm trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
and it's so loud outside, so I wasn't too upset about leaving, but
Yeah.
I mean, hey, it seems like it kind of worked out for you, because I mean,
Yeah.
if memory serves me correctly from sort of watching those documentaries we referenced earlier, that's where you met Ashley Barrett, right? Who became a huge part of Supergiant, or did you meet her prior?
So actually, Ashley and I both grew up in the Bay Area and did musical theater at the same musical theater place.
That's awesome.
And we just had a bunch of mutual friends. We didn't know each other when we were doing the theater stuff. Um, and I met her because I was doing that demo album for that musical that I'd written, and I was looking for a singer for a particular part, and she was recommended to me by a bunch of mutual friends who were in theater with her. And so she killed it on that project. And when I was working on Bastion, I thought, well, geez, I should probably call her up. I bet she'll kill this too. Um, so yeah, and that was it. And that was the first time we'd worked together, was that demo album I did.
Oh, okay, so you guys just
Wow,
both happen to go to Brooklyn from the Bay Area.
Yeah, yeah.
that's crazy.
I think she finished college and then moved out to New York. And I went to school out there.
Okay. And if my memory serves me correct, I'm a huge, like, and Andrew is too, like, punk rock sort of like, and Andrew might not be so much a ska guy. I won't put those words into his mouth, but
Mhm.
I am.
I mean, I like
And,
ska more than like the old classic punk rock. So
okay, true. And so it seems like you were kind of coming up in your like late teenage years, still sort of around like some of the golden age, some of the bands that
The
like
tail
are
end.
legendary for crafting the Bay Area. And I
Yeah.
mean, I just assume maybe you like some of that music. I've seen you in an Aquabats t-shirt before, so I mean, that must have been tough to leave. I mean, I couldn't leave if I had like those legendary bands kicking around.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, I wasn't into a lot of that stuff at that time. Like, I like the Aquabats, but they're from San Diego. Um and and I but I wasn't really into ska so much at that time, and I wasn't really into like Mr. Bungle, I would say, is probably the coolest Bay Area band that
Great
was kind
band.
of around when I
Mr.
was around.
Bungle.
Um but I wasn't into them at that time also. Like, I was, you know what I mean? Like, I hadn't discovered them yet. I was like in high school, I was into, I mean, some of these bands I'm still into, but I was into They Might Be Giants. I was into those first two Weezer albums. I was into this band called Ozma, which is kind of like a better Weezer. Um, I was
Whoa,
I gotta write that down.
controversial
Damn.
statement.
Ozma. If you hear them, you'll be like, oh yeah, I get it. Yeah, they're rad. Like, yeah, they just have more interesting stuff going on, but also kind of have that Weezer vibe. But it's like more uh
More of what you love and
more
less of what you
exciting.
don't.
Yeah, yeah, less of what you don't. Yeah. Um, And so that they're great, and I loved you know, Bjork and like Jeff Buckley and Radiohead and stuff, and Led Zeppelin and the Beatles and all that stuff. So that's the stuff that I was really into at that time, and I was never, in general wasn't really into anything current for the most part, like except Radiohead. Radiohead was like one of the few bands that was like making new albums that I thought were good until
That was the
for
most
a while.
mainstream that you got.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you know, for a minute, I liked Coldplay or whatever. Kind of, I like that first album. I just like them each a little bit less, you know, as they
Right, right.
as they went.
Parachutes is really
Parachutes is
good.
awesome. Yeah, that was really
Parachutes is
cool.
great.
I stopped
Um,
with like Viva La Vida.
yeah,
That was pretty much
I
like the
was out.
last like
Yeah,
really good one. Yeah.
yeah, I was out by then. I thought like, yeah, yeah. So I mean, you know, and again, like even bands like Queens of the Stone Age that were happening when I was in college, I came to like them a lot more later. Like
Hmm.
I wasn't, for whatever reason, I just wasn't up on any of this stuff. I guess the Darkness is a band that I liked like when they came out and still like them. Um,
Okay, can't say
but
I know
that
them.
the Darkness, oh, they're cool. You should check them out. They had that song "I Believe in a Thing Called Love" was their hit in the 2000s, and they had "Growing on Me" and yeah, they had a couple of hits, but they have like the singer has this incredible like high falsetto thing that he does, and they're kind of like it almost reads as parody, but it is not parody. It's like really, it's really
Their
idiosyncratic.
band photo on Spotify is pretty sick.
Yeah, exactly.
Just
I
this
mean,
like
that's pretty much, just
You know
imagine
what's
how that
funny?
band sounds, and then you're right, basically.
And not to steer too far away, because I promise I have a segue off this to get back to sort of like learning more about your journey and stuff. But
Yeah.
are you familiar with Wolfpack at all?
Oh yeah.
I feel like they almost read as parody, but they're
Yeah,
not.
like they're
You
they're
know?
just
I see
they're
what
just
you mean, yeah.
they're just fun. Yeah, like I think Wolfpack is like, they just have like a really fun vibe, and like the music isn't silly. Some of the
Right.
lyrics are silly, but the music is not. You know, the music is just feels awesome and grooves, and then they're just kind
Exactly.
of
And
silly. Yeah.
I'm also a huge Wolfpack, and then their related artist. Spotify does great with that. I found
Yep.
this artist called Lewis Cole, and he's pretty
I
parody, but
love
he's
Lewis
not.
Cole. I love him.
But he's
He's like one
not
of my
though.
no, he's just, again, he's just like funny, like he's not joking. I mean, he is kind of joking, but it's not, the music isn't a joke. The music is like seriously amazing, you know,
Yeah,
and
exactly. Kind of
Lewis
like that
Cole,
Weezer mentality, but again, not the stuff you don't like.
yeah. And Lewis Cole, I feel like Weezer takes themselves really seriously, kind of, actually, like when I dug more into them.
YouTube keeps feeding me this video that I haven't clicked on yet. That the title is "Weezer fails to recognize their own music,"
Yeah.
and it's just the thumbnail is just Rivers Cuomo with headphones on, and I'm like, I do
That's a
believe
really
that is exactly what this video
that's
is.
a really funny idea.
That's
I
awesome.
I Yeah, I mean, Lewis Cole is one of my favorite people right now. One of my favorite artists. Like, he's doing stuff that is so insane and so musical. Like, that's the thing that's crazy about that guy in particular, is that most people who are virtuosos like he is don't have good ideas, or like they've spent so much time practicing that their like creative ideas don't exist or whatever. I don't know what it is. And again, this is a generalization and not always true, obviously.
No, I
But
totally get that. Like you know Yngwie Malmsteen, right? Are you
yeah,
familiar with him?
yeah.
I mean, the dude can shred, but to be honest with you, I can't say I can name a single one of his songs, and I
No.
probably heard him and not been into him. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I
mean,
mean?
yeah, exactly. I mean, he's like, it sounds like he's running scales to me. You know what I mean? Like when I hear that guy play, it sounds like he's practicing still while I'm listening to him, you know? Um,
Exactly.
but
Great
Lewis Cole,
video of him ripping on an acoustic guitar in a
oh,
stand in Japan on
yeah,
YouTube. Look that
yeah.
up if you
I
guys
mean,
want, but
he can just, yeah, no, like his ability is not, is in question, you know? I mean,
for
but, but,
sure.
but for me, like the thing that's so amazing about Lewis Cole that I really respect is that he is a guy who's like as good as any drummer that exists at playing the drums, and an incredible keyboard player too. And his production is awesome, and he has like really interesting creative ideas, and his music is like, the melodies are good and it's accessible with crazy stuff happening under the hood. Like, that's the most interesting thing about him, and Nowhere, his one of his bands that he's involved in.
Oh, I
um
didn't know he had a band. I definitely got to check that out.
Nowhere is kick-ass. It's him and the singer Genevieve Artadi, and he does all the, on the albums, he basically does all the instrumental stuff. It's just drums and a bunch of keys. You know, different types of keys, but he plays incredible like funk key bass and stuff. But yeah, Nowhere is great. The album Life is incredible, and actually the live Nowhere band is like one of the best concerts I've ever seen in my life. Um, they usually play with a sax player and a keyboard player, and he plays the drums. And
Cool.
it's like it's oh, and
Uh,
a bass player, and it's just like some of the most incredible stuff I've ever seen. You should, if you want to check out Knower, my favorite like entrance to checking out that band is the live video that of them performing Time Traveler, and it's just them like in a house with like a pretty well made video, but it's like they're just performing this track. You know, it's obviously all in one take, and it's Knower. Yep, that's them.
Perfect. Andrew, I was like thinking like, wow, this would be such bad form to ask how to spell something on a podcast.
No, I
But I
mean,
was like dying to know what it was. So thank you for pulling that
you're
up. You muted out, man.
I was just thinking that, like, how do you spell no-er? And then I was
yeah,
like, it's a fucking word.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's cool,
So
man. I definitely got to check that out.
yeah, I mean, if you
Um,
dig Lewis Cole, it's like very related. It's just yeah, and Genevieve Artati's an awesome vocalist and stuff. So it's
It's
and
the
great
last
performer.
thing I'll say about Lewis Cole is, all of those things you said, 100% yes. But then his lyrics are so just of the time in a sense where he's just kind of not as formal, like he'll curse if he wants to curse. He has like a hip quality to it that is complete dichotomy in regards to like how he's like got like these 70s funk tracks and then like almost like these cinematic interlude style like 3 minute very like washed piano tracks,
Yeah,
but like the wordplay sometimes is super casual and it's a
yeah,
really weird feeling that I get while listening to him. I'm like,
yeah,
what's kind of going on here? But I
yeah.
like it. And I think that's an excellent segue actually into talking about you as a composer because you fascinate me in the sense that not only did you create your own genre, and that's totally something I want to dive into and sort of get behind, but before we even get into
Yeah,
that, how does a guy who comes from working in studios and clearly, just talking to you now, I'm getting the sense that you're like kind of a rock guy. You like a little pop, you like a little, but like, you play D&D, so there's some of that I think lends itself to being creative in that regard, working with like, the Supergiant team. But I mean, it doesn't seem like you woke up and said, I want to compose for video games. It kind of seems like you maybe wanted to either produce bands and have control group
hmm
on the side and hopefully something takes off with that someday, but it
right.
certainly does not seem to me like you wanted to be a video game composer, yet here we are.
Yeah, I was waiting. I was waiting for you in that backstory to be like, yeah, and then I went to the arcade and I fell in love with video games. And it's like,
Right.
does this dude even play video games? I
I
don't
mean,
even know yet.
the thing that I left out, of course, is that I've grown up loving and playing video games for sure.
Great.
I started playing games when I was
I
probably about
figured.
five years old, and I had older brothers, so we had all the systems. We had a 2600 Atari 2600, and when we got the NES and all that stuff, and all the way onward. And yeah, I mean, I grew up loving that stuff and loving some video game music. Not, I wouldn't say that I love video game music like overall necessarily
Right.
as something that I listen to, but particular games really made an impression on me as a kid, like Marble Madness for the NES. That game was a trip.
I've heard
Um,
of that game, but I've never played it.
you can like play it on an emulator online or whatever, and
Right. Right.
it's if you want, but it's the music is incredible and it's so weird. And the game is weird. It's like an MC Escher, like isometric Nintendo, like where you play as a marble going down a marble run, essentially.
Right. That sounds
Um,
like a really weird fever dream of a game I played for
yeah,
N64 where it was basically that, except all of the marbles had faces and names and they were all elastic. And I was like, is this a race or is this a mini game? I
what's
don't even know what's
happening? Yeah,
going
yeah,
on, but it
yeah,
was
yeah,
Amazing.
definitely a trip.
yeah. But so I was really that game really made an impression on me. Fallout 2 is a game I loved. One of my favorites of all time, probably because I'd never really played anything like it, and the tone was so unique. And I hadn't played Fallout 1 at that time, which I went back and subsequently played, and it's awesome also. Um, and yeah, and Rock Band, and Guitar Hero and all that stuff, I started playing like in 2007 when Guitar Hero came out. 2007, 2005, I think is Guitar Hero.
That sounds
Um,
right.
and I Amir, who was in the know. He showed, we it was Christmas break, we were all home, and he brought over Guitar Hero, and just like that's all we did for the whole break. And then I went out and bought it because I was like, okay, well I need this. This is the best thing I've
I
ever
feel
done.
like everybody has one of those stories with Guitar Hero. Like my buddy brought over, we played it, and then I went and I got it, and I 5-starred every song.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
I almost wish Guitar Hero was never invented. Not that I think I'm a bad guitar player. I'm definitely solid, but I would have been such a better guitar player if Guitar Hero never came out.
That's true, but the good thing with Guitar Hero and Rock Band is it introduced a lot of kids like me to all of the old rock and roll that you didn't get before that. Like I had never heard of Coheed and Cambria before Rock Band.
That's true too.
I mean, and I, well, so first, Rock Band. So I still play Rock Band, and I kind of stayed with Harmonix when they made Rock Band, and I just went that way.
Have you checked out Fuser?
Yeah, I checked out Fuser. Yeah, my kid digs that one. Yeah, it's cool. It's like it's like Drop Mix, but the video.
Exactly,
game,
but you don't have to buy all these dumb cards.
Yeah. I mean, you do still, but they're not.
You do, but at least you can't lose them.
You can't lose them. Yeah. No, but it's really interesting. It's like when the first Rock Band came out, we had all played Guitar Hero and 1 and 2, and we're all into those, and we had a bunch of fun with those. And then when Rock Band came out, that winter break was just, it was like the most fun like 3 weeks where we went to Amir's house, and he had all the gear set up, and like we'd do it every day for like 6 hours, like it was a band, like a real band. We'd go and we'd do the world tour mode, and the thing that was so incredible about that experience is that game, unlike any other game I'd ever played, created like a simulation of like real band dynamics. We'd be like, come on, man, you gotta play on expert so we can get more fans. Get your stuff together. It's like, it's just like
Chris and I had days like that too. I remember one time we were at a friend's. I don't remember if it was her high school graduation party or if it was her birthday, but it was me, Chris, and another mutual friend of ours. We were hanging out, and I don't even remember how long we were there, but I was like, yeah, I mean, I've got Rock Band set up in my basement. Like, all the furniture's not even down there. Like, it's just a big empty room with Rock Band. And we were like, should we just leave?
Yeah.
And we just
so
left,
we
and
ditched the party because, hey,
we
band
ditched the
practice
party and went to my house and played Rock Band, just drummer, 2 guitarists.
Yeah.
And we probably played that game for 4 hours.
Yeah.
And we were performing. Like, I remember sweating.
Yeah. And I play, you can't quite see it, but I have an electronic kit right there, and
I see the wires.
Yeah, and that's what I play Rock Band. Like I try to play like once a week still. I just love playing the Rock Band drums these days. And in 2010, I was the national Rock Band champion. In fact.
What?
Yeah.
How do you?
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds awesome.
How do you do that?
There were 2 years where Rock Band had a national, I think, a North American Rock Band competition.
I'm so mad. I would have been so good.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so mad. What a missed opportunity.
2010, and it was a battle of the bands where it's not just score based, it's like costume and performance.
I remember, did they do this on MTV?
It was MTV. They may have aired like a tiny little segment from it potentially. Like I know,
because I remember MTV did a thing like that where like everyone was on like a legit stage playing Rock Band.
It was in Atlantic City at a like a stage and casino. Yeah, it was at like Harrah's or something.
Oh my god.
But yeah, it was incredible. And so my band won the 2010 one, which was the last one they ever had, because MTV, sold Harmonix and didn't own them anymore, and they were the ones who hosted this event. So technically, I'm the reigning Rock Band champion.
I was just gonna say undefeated.
Nice,
because they didn't have any other ones.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
So
I'm sorry that we didn't mention that in your intro.
True, that is true. That's on us. 100%.
That's the name of the episode. We talked with the reigning Rock Band champion.
Yeah.
World
champion.
Hyped.
I mean,
world champion. Get it right.
Sorry.
No, so Darren, that was an amazing little rabbit hole, I do have to say. But that still doesn't sort of answer the question. How does one go from being so eclectic and so versed in rock music to ending up composing music for video games?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is my interest in production. And especially, when I started digging into Logic, they really have some incredible sample libraries and stuff that I was playing around with that was maybe not in my wheelhouse necessarily, or stuff that I would think to make. But when I heard it, I'd be like, oh, that's cool. That'll pair nicely with this thing that I would think of, And so I think it was really like partially because of discovering just having this like chemistry with this DAW, that really kind of allowed me to compose in the way that I started started doing around that time. Um, and for me, yeah, it wasn't an ambition that I had necessarily, but when the opportunity came up, I was totally all about it. I mean, it made perfect sense to me. Like when Amir asked me to do the audio for Supergiant, I was like, yeah, I'm that sounds amazing. Like, why didn't I think of that? I can do that. Sort of my reaction. So yeah.
But you're a one man team. So, from someone who was sort of kicking around in New York doing internships, and don't let me put words in your mouth, but it seems like maybe there might have been some frustration there with in regards to like how the internship process was going, where it seemed like maybe your real growth was coming in your personal time, and that's kind of not the point of an internship.
Yeah, for
Did I
sure.
get that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I found the internship to be valuable in certain ways, but there was just, I was a little impatient, I think, with it. I mean, I was there for a while, but I just kind of um wanted a little bit more something else out of it than maybe what I was getting. Um and so yeah, I spent a lot of time in my off time just kind of experimenting and trying to push on that stuff as hard as I could. And gain experience in whatever way I could if I wasn't kind of gaining that experience in the internship.
Yeah, totally. So then this challenge presents itself and you jump to the occasion. Is that sort of maybe out of frustration where it's like the systems you had in place weren't really getting you what you wanted, and this was cuz I mean I think it's like to me it I mean if I ever got asked to, to join a company, it would be like joining a startup, right? Like there's a lot of risk in that, and you kind of have an internship at a studio that has credibility, and you're making a living off music at this point. And so where was kind of your head at in regards to that? Oh,
I
okay,
mean,
gotcha. Yeah, and
I
then
wasn't
paint us in.
I wasn't really making a living. I was attempting to, but it was, I was making a little money here and there. I'd like the thing I got paid for most was to produce stuff, and that was fairly infrequent, but every once in a while I get paid to produce a thing. Every once in a while I'd get like a little composing gig, like a few times total. And every once in a while I'd have like a very low paying musician gig essentially. And so basically I was getting support, and I'm super lucky to have had to been have my parents be able to like help me out during this time and like supplement my rent money, um to allow me to not have to get a day job, essentially, that I could just fully focus um on this thing that I knew I had to be the thing that I did, music in some form or fashion. So that was, yeah. I mean, not to, I don't want to give the impression that the stuff I was doing at that time was making me a living. It was not, for sure. So when the opportunity came up to do this, it didn't seem risky to me because it wasn't high paying, because it was we were self funded, and we are trying to be frugal, with what we paid ourselves and everything. Um, but it was paying, which was like better than a lot of the stuff I was doing, which was not paying. And I got to work with a buddy of mine. I was really excited to do that. I got to work on a video game, which I was excited to do, and it just seemed like a fun challenge. Um, of a thing that I didn't fully know how I was going to approach, but it seemed like a fun kind of puzzle to solve. And for me, one of the ways I like to improve and learn is to kind of get into the deep end, over my head a little bit, and try to figure it out, try to learn to swim that way.
How much of the game was done when you were asked to start doing the music, or was it like right at the beginning they were like, "We're about to do this thing and we need sound and we need you to make sounds"?
It was pretty much right at the beginning. I mean, I think there may have been like a little prototype or something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but it was like weeks, not even months, I think. Yeah, I think it was
Wow,
Okay.
like right, pretty much right at the beginning.
that's
How new
awesome.
were you to sound design? Because it seems like we've spoken a lot about you as a musician and someone who wants to record bands and be in a band, but you're the one man show here at Supergiant. The one man team. So
Yeah, so I was brand new to sound design at that time and had to learn a lot about it really fast. And that was part of the fun challenge for me, was just trying to figure out all that stuff as I went. I had to bother the engineers a lot to like help me figure out how to. It's like, can you? Well, so also we were using a middleware and integration software for the audio that was pretty uh, not fully featured, let's say, and it was free and not super great. And I had to ask the engineers to like write me a reverb, like, please, can I have a reverb, please? That can play in the game, and I just kind of had to figure out how to what my approach to sound design was going to be. Originally I tried um, making sounds that would be kind of like a more of a one-to-one with the actual thing the character was doing, and it proved to be unsatisfying. You want it to be bigger and more exaggerated and more exciting, and provide like visceral feedback for the stuff that you're doing in the game. So I kind of triangulated my approach with feedback from the other members of the team, and just kind of experimentation and putting it in the game and seeing how it felt, and thinking, well, what's wrong with this? Like, this should be, theoretically it should work, but it's not working, and why, and trying to back solve all that stuff and iterate on it and improve it. And so over time I kind of developed an approach um, to that
Mm,
stuff. Yeah, it was certainly like a steep learning curve, like at the beginning, just trying to, like, I don't know how any of this works, literally, like
right.
the scripting and the middleware and all that stuff. So
And at what point did you get really good at describing what sound, like how the music sounds? Because looking at it says like Korb describes the music as this. I'm like,
mhm.
how do you come up with all those adjectives to come together? Like for
Yeah,
Bastion, you said
Yeah.
it was acoustic, frontier, trip hop.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I've been dying to
Yeah,
talk about that.
I
Thank you,
couldn't
Andrew.
if someone was just like, oh, it's acoustic, frontier, trip hop. I couldn't even like think of what to do with my mouth to like make, it's like
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, for me, it was really something that I did as like something to help myself be able to do it, because I was trying to solve the problem of, well, I don't have experience as a composer. I don't have the tools available to a traditional composer, and so I wanted to find a way to unify the music in the game uh, without having it sound the same, and without having it be repetitive. And so I decided that just sort of developing a style for the music, or a production aesthetic, um, would really help me just kind of focus the effort and not have to worry too much about like not repeating myself. And I could sort of put a pin in the map and just kind of make everything in a radius around that. And the different aspects that are the sort of contrasting styles in that description are meant to sort of represent different aspects of the game's tone or setting. The acoustic part is the sort of Western vibe that the game has. The frontier aspect is meant to represent the sort of, you know, exotic nature of the locales and in the game and this world, and that's represented by some of those sort of Eastern instruments in there that are sort of at least strange to a Western listener, or when compared with the other stuff there, that maybe are not something you would think to combine. And then the trip hop component was um, to help just put the listener in a new space. That, combined with these other two components, I felt would help just put them somewhere they hadn't been before, um, to this new setting. And part of that was, I mean, and a lot of that stuff was arrived at with just practical constraints in mind, because I knew, okay, I don't have any budget to pay anyone to help me on this. I can't go into a recording studio and record live drums or anything like that. So this is all stuff that I can do in my apartment. That's the constraint. It's just stuff that I have to be able to execute by myself here with the tools that I have. And so the trip hop part of it was convenient for me, because hey, I have all these incredible sounds and loops and logic that are of this style that I can totally pull off, and it won't seem, it'll seem like a choice and not a constraint, and that'll work, and it'll do this interesting stylistic thing. And I've got this acoustic guitar and I can record it. I have this microphone and we could do that. And so a lot of it was just doing making the best choice I could given my constraints at the time.
No, that's super interesting, man.
I really love that you just dove into each word of that because I would really love to see how you would
Yeah,
do that with the other two that you described.
Yeah, yeah.
that was the best
Uh,
sort of way to go about it. And now, so I'm curious, as you've grown and as the company's grown, obviously you've had a lot of great success. I think rightfully so. But how much of that Bastion approach, because there's certainly a magic in that game and a magic in that score. And to me, I would say that it's been there throughout the entirety of it, but maybe the approach has changed, and maybe you just keep catching lightning in a bottle. I mean, how have you sort of grown now, being a composer, going from someone who kind of didn't expect this path, but you rose to the occasion, and now here you are.
right. I think what Chris is really asking is how do you go from acoustic frontier trip hop to old world electronic post rock?
Again, Andrew, exactly. That's exactly
That's what
I'm
everyone wants to
asking.
know.
Yeah, well, on Transistor, I mean, for me, I'm just trying to do the best I can to match the setting of the game and help immerse the player in that location and the vibe and the place.
Which has to be so fun because all of those games have the coolest ideas.
Yeah,
All
yeah, it's
all of them are just like, how do you come up with that?
yeah. I mean, it's a ton of fun, and I think for me the main thing is just trying to figure out styles that will evoke and instruments like a sonic palette that are going to evoke this particular place combined with whatever tone and other thematic stuff we're trying to do. And so I come at it for each game, I try to come at it from a perspective of what are the instruments that would make sense to hear in this place based on how it looks and we want it to feel. What is the type of music that people here would listen to? What's the type of music that people here would make? And I try to make, the music isn't all necessarily diegetic, like it's not coming from a place in the world necessarily, but I try to make the choices around the composition somewhat diegetic, if that makes sense. Like I want there to be like texture of the world in the music. And so a lot of that happens at the beginning of the project where I'm just kind of experimenting with what instruments are going to be sort of central to this place. Um, and for Transistor, it was it was sort of like a sci-fi Venice, vintage futurism kind of vibe, right? And so what is that, right? And the old world stuff is meant to represent like kind of like the European vibe, like the vintagey European vibe of the place, um and with instruments like harps and accordions and other things like that. And then the electronic component is the sort of computery sci-fi thing with the process and all the sort of enemy faction is all sort of computery. So I wanted that to be a component in the music, and then the post rock part of it was just a pure tonal thing for me. It's like OK Computer by Radiohead isn't a post rock album, but that was a big influence for me in particular, on the tone of that soundtrack. And also like people like Imogen Heap and Bjork and other artists like that, and even well, so for post rock like Grandaddy, was an influence as well. And so that's kind of represented by the kind of ghostly reverbed out guitars that are doing like repetitive like kind of driving riffs and stuff. um and so yeah, each component kind of represents a different element of the soundtrack, and for that one it took me a while, like the description came later than the sound, whereas for
Totally.
Bastion I came up with the idea and then did the thing, so it depends on the game. um and for Pyre, it took, I think it was like less of a concern. My goal for Pyre
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
was,
I couldn't find the Korb described thing for Pyre.
yeah,
Pyre,
I
it just says you served as the composer. I
I
was
don't
like,
really
great.
remember even what I called it. I
Tell us
know
something we don't know.
I know I said it somewhere, but my explicit goal was I want to extrapolate a genre out from from just the beginning of Stairway to Heaven. It's just the, like,
Wow, that's awesome. It's arguably the better
Wow.
part of the song.
it's just the mellotron flutes and the riff, the like acoustic riff, and then
Wait,
it's like
hang on. You don't think those are real flutes? Have I been living a lie my
they
whole
might
life?
be real, but when they play it live as mellotron,
Oh,
but
yeah, he's on.
yeah,
Okay, cool. He's
he's
on the
on
chord or
the
something.
You
Gotcha.
almost just
Okay.
rocked Chris's entire
those are real.
universe.
I just watched this,
Because I was like,
documentary last night, this Zeppelin documentary about that album, but it was such a weird documentary because like they didn't license any of the actual tracks from the album for the documentary. Is all live versions, so they're talking specifically about the recorded tracks, and somebody in a segment will be like, oh, they do this little production thing, and then they'll play that section of the song from a live concert that doesn't have that in it, obviously, because yeah, it was such a weird documentary. Anyway,
yeah.
digress.
They're no clip.
Yeah.
They have some weird legalities going on over in the Led Zeppelin camp.
Oh yeah.
I think it's pretty well known, unfortunately.
Yeah. Jimmy Page just owns all the masters and just doesn't let anybody do anything with them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. The Zeppelin
Must
rock
be
bands
nice.
that never happened,
Okay, but then
Dude.
how do you get from all of that to Mediterranean prog rock Halloween?
Yes. Mediterranean
that's
prog rock,
the best one.
That's 80s.
What was it? It kind of
And
cut out
I
for me a little bit. I want to make sure the
Medit-
listeners fully heard that.
Mediterranean prog rock Halloween music.
Oh,
Yes,
we
that's the
definitely got to
music of
talk about
Hades.
that.
Hades. So I'll admit I haven't played the other three. I've seen so many just videos and everything because I watch a lot of video game YouTube videos about like Bastion's ending and all that kind of stuff. But Hades I actually got and played, and I mean even besides the music, the game is freaking awesome.
Thank you.
And reading that description, I'm like, first you read all the words and you're like, no, what does that even mean? That doesn't mean anything. And then you think about it and you're like, fuck, that's exactly what it is. Like, I couldn't exactly tell you
Wow.
why,
So good.
but it
Andrew.
is.
That was
Yeah.
It kind of makes me mad.
Well, yeah. So again, each component represents a different aspect of the game's tone and setting, right? So the Mediterranean stuff is the Greek vibe. Like that's the Greek vibe. It's a Greek underworld. It's got to have a Mediterranean vibe. So I have like bouzouki, lavta, and balama. Those two are Turkish instruments, but it's all. If you go back far enough, it was all one thing. Right. And so, and then kind of hand percussion stuff to give kind of like an older Mediterranean vibe. And then it's in hell, so you got to have some metal, so
Yes, it must be epic.
It must be metal. So the prog rock component is meant to like represent that, and I figure the sort of in a Greek hell, for some reason it just made sense to me to have like weird time signatures. It's like you have to be like a little bit uncomfortable with something about the music. So
there is a sense of just like the music makes me feel like it's like you shouldn't stay in this room. You need to get out of this room.
Yeah, you got to keep moving, right? You don't want to rest. So a lot of it has funky time signatures and stuff, which is the sort of prog rock component as well. And some of that's in like a folk, like a folk thing. That's kind of a common component is strange time signatures from like Mediterranean folk, and I even like I listened to this band called Vertina, which is like they're either Finnish or I don't know, some Scandinavian country. I forget where they're from, but they have this song in like 21/8, which was really, it's like a compound meter, 21/8.
I don't think I could even count that high.
I've
while
never
playing
heard of
music.
that before. I won't even lie to you right now.
It's really weird.
21/8.
But
8 doesn't even go into 21.
Yeah, it's 21/8 notes in a measure, right? Is the idea, right? And yeah, it doesn't make any sense. But so I tried to do some of that kind of stuff. I made my own tune in 21/8 just to because I was like, oh, this is weird and interesting and mentally fascinating. And it's Out of Tartarus is mostly in 21/8. But and then the Halloween music, that aspect of it is represented in the game by like this kind of theremin like component that is throughout the soundtrack, which I play on a little Casio SK1 with a bunch of effects on it, basically is what that is. And that to me is meant to represent the sort of lightness and the quirk of the game's tone, which is not represented anywhere else in the music, right?
Yes.
The game is like on the surface should be gloomy, but it is not when you play. It's like positive and sort of it's like got a sense of humor and it's happy.
I've never played a game where like you beat a boss and then you see the boss at your house and they're like, you rapscallion, and you're like, sorry.
Yeah, Greg said that he was really interested. It was almost, he was inspired by those old like Looney Tunes cartoons where they like these two characters are like beating each other up, and then the bell rings and they like go clock out and they're at the bar
Yeah,
having a
yeah,
drink.
yeah. Like the dog and the chickens and
Yeah,
all that
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, yeah,
Like the same idea. It's like,
yeah.
and there's like, it's Hades, among other things, it's just a workplace, like the House of
Right.
Hades, right? It's
That
like,
was, yeah, I saw something in one of the
A
reviews that
workplace,
was
that's
like
amazing.
Hades brings us like the one thing that we didn't know we needed in a roguelite, and that's dating simulator.
yeah, 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 yeah.
That was the
That's
one
so
thing that
good.
Diablo could
Wow.
never, bro.
Yeah.
Diablo could never. Also, I just want to say before we get too off topic of all these songs, like, so playing Hades, I hear the music, and then I went back and listened to the music from the other games,
Hmm.
and it's so weird. Like, listening to it, I found this one song that isn't your song kept
Mhm.
popping into my head after listening to all your music, and that was Rasputin by Boney M. I don't know if
Oh,
you know that song.
I don't know that one.
The beginning of that song, like the guitar tone, at least for the beginning, I just feel like I keep hearing that part of that song in all of your music, and it's
Oh,
probably
cool.
just the guitar tone and the way they play it, because
Yeah,
they're,
yeah.
I think they were put together in Germany or something like that, so
Oh,
they got
interesting.
this weird, and that song is like a weird, like, it's disco, but it's also like telling the story of Rasputin, so it's trying to sound all old time Russian-y, and
That's
it's just
funny.
the
Yeah, yeah.
weirdest thing. And saying all that out loud, I'm like, of course this reminds me of Darren's
Yeah,
music,
the
because
sort of
he just
mashup.
described all of his music as like a crazy fever dream of just setting and atmosphere and
Yeah.
like feeling. It's so crazy.
I also love how you made acoustic guitars obnoxiously heavy in like the
Yes!
best way possible.
Mhm.
It's like you took the Breaking Bad theme song and you said, "Okay, I see you, and I'll raise your bet." You know,
Yeah.
because
Literally,
really
I
the
really
heavy nature
hope
there is what Heisenberg's doing, and it's just your typical
Listen,
sort of Western
I'm
style.
I'm praying that the next Supergiant game is a Western theme, because that's what I want to see you tackle.
Yeah.
Well,
I
we'll
mean,
get we'll
yeah.
get there, because even if you can't speak about it, we obligatorily have to ask you what's on the future. But before we get
Yeah, like they
there,
tell him.
before we get there, I kind of want to talk about this Abbey Road recording. I mean, that
Yeah.
seems like a once in a lifetime musical dream experience,
It was.
and I would love to hear about it, man. I'd love to let me
Oh.
live vicariously through you.
Hold on,
Yeah.
hold on, hold on. Real quick, I
Yeah.
just, before we get into that, because I don't want to derail that,
Yeah.
I just want to ask, was it fun doing voice acting for a game on top of doing the music?
Yeah, I
For
mean,
Hades.
it was a blast. I'd done a little bit in Pyre, but that game was mostly not in English, like it was like in a made up language, so it's
Right.
pretty different.
Mhm.
You could just hide. It doesn't really. No one can tell if it's a good performance or not, because it's
It's
just
like
a
speaking Simlish
Yeah,
in The
yeah,
Sims.
exactly. But in Hades, yeah, no, it was fun, and I was a little nervous at first, but the way I ended up getting cast as Zagreus and Skelly was just, we had we recorded some scratch VO, or I recorded some scratch VO for these characters, and we had some other people record scratch for some other characters, and we, in the end, we just didn't end up getting auditions that we preferred to the scratch that I'd recorded, so I just kind of defaulted into these characters, and I was like, okay, I guess I'm gonna do it, and we didn't
Yeah.
at that time really have a sense of what the VO scope was gonna be or anything, and I didn't know that Zagreus was gonna end up having 9,000 lines of dialogue in the game.
I wanted to ask, how long did it take you to record all that? Because there's so many options to
Yeah.
talk with and about, and who
Yeah.
is just like, how?
Yeah, so I mean, overall in the game, there's over 22,000 lines of voiceover, and we recorded them over the course of development for about, I'd say, 3 years. Is pretty much
Jeez.
kind of at semi-regular intervals over about 3 years, just kind of chunking away at it over time.
That's crazy. And it blows my mind that you're Zagreus and Skelly. Skelly being arguably the best non-player character, in my opinion.
I love Skelly. Yeah, he's
How-
one of my faves too.
How did they ask you for that kind of like accent, like New York kind of guy, or that was just, you decided that?
There's just this, we had a character in Pyre who had a voice that my friends and I would do just for fun, a lot, and his name is Falcon Ron in Pyre. He's the shopkeeper, and he kind of talked like this, but it was in a made up language, like, and so we thought, well, it would be fun to have another character. We should just have that character in every game now, going forward, just to amuse us. And for Skelly, so I tried doing that initially for Skelly, but it was like this guy's more high energy than Ron is. Skelly's like he's got a lot to say, and
Yeah, he's like, beat the shit out of me, bro.
yeah, he's like, hey, come on, what are you doing? And and so I just kind of, it was like it ended up being like that voice kind of meets Joe Pesci or something, like
I
so
feel that. I
yeah,
feel that.
which,
Nice.
and somebody pointed out to me later after the game had come out in early access, like he basically sounds like Moe from The Simpsons, and I was like, oh yeah, I guess he does. Maybe I should have just been doing a Moe voice, but yeah, he was super fun to do. Yeah.
That's awesome. So
Amazing,
fun.
man. You wear many hats. That's it's very
Yeah.
impressive.
It's
So
just
yeah,
like any
Abbey Road.
any sort of sound that comes from Supergiant is just you. Any sound.
Yeah, a lot. I at least shepherd all the sounds, even if I'm not responsible for every last little piece.
Did Ashley get to voice any character in Hades?
Ashley sings. She sings for Eurydice.
Oh right, duh.
Yeah.
I knew that.
Yep. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Very cool. Yeah. So, dude, I gotta know Abbey Road, man. I got the plugins. I'm a huge Beatles fan, but that doesn't quite come close to I assume being in the room where the magic happened.
No, it was fully insane. Basically, the way it came about was for the studio's 10th anniversary in 2009. We wanted to do something really special for fans and for just to celebrate. And so uh, somebody had the idea, like maybe you could do like an orchestral concert or something. And originally I was like, that's what? How would I do that? Like, what do you mean? That
Yeah,
seems
now
insane.
you're just giving me a lot of work to do.
Yeah, like what is that? I'm not capable of doing this. This is not my thing. But and then I thought about it a little more. I'm like, well, let me contact a person who would know how to do this. And so I contacted my buddy Austin Wintory, who's a video game composer for Journey and Abzu and Assassin's Creed Syndicate and all sorts of games. And his wheelhouse, I would say, is working with orchestras. And in addition to other stuff, but I brought this up to him, like, so if I were to put on like a concert of orchestral arrangements, like how would that work? And he's like, first of all, I think it's a great idea. Second of all, you should do it, and I am gonna conduct it. And he was like really on board. um and so that we kind of got the ball rolling on that, and decided on like a sort of a chamber ensemble together. We like put our heads together, and I had some specific creative goals. Like, I don't want it to just be a translation of the recording to different instruments. I don't want that, because I don't think that'll be interesting for people or me. So I was like, no drum kit, you know like full different orchestral type of vibe. Like, it's gonna not feel like the songs, and I want to feel different. um and so we went with this kind of quirky ensemble with, like, it had trombones and woodwinds and some tuned percussionists, um, and then a string quintet, um, and yeah, and a harp, um, and it ended up, the arrangements came together really well. This guy Brian LaGuardia arranged everything for us, and Austin and I kind of gave him notes and helped kind of shepherd that process. And then yeah, we did the show in Seattle, and it was such an incredible experience for me and for Ashley, and we had a ton of fun, and we thought, geez, this was so much fun and it went so well, maybe we should make an album of these arrangements. And Austin, I went to Austin, I was like, how would I record, like, how would we do this, what's the process of going about recording an orchestra somewhere? And so he priced out a few different studios and locations, and there's a place in Seattle and a place in Nashville. And then he's like, and I just threw Abbey Road in there, just in case, and
Yeah, like you're not gonna pick Abbey Road.
it's like,
Just
yeah,
for safekeeping.
it's just like, it was like a little more expensive than the other places, but not as much as like I thought it would be, kind of. So it was actually kind of, we were able to consider doing it. And I think partially, I wrote a couple of tunes for Hades to record there as well, just to help kind of justify the endeavor. um and yeah, I mean, and we ended up going, it was 2 days in the studio, we did 12 songs in 2 days. Ashley and I sang in isolation booths, like live during the thing. And we came out of there with a record and 2 songs for Hades. It was such an incredible experience. The musicians were amazing. We were in Studio 2, like where the Beatles made all the records and stuff. It was like
So cool.
I'd never been to London before.
Can't put a price on any of that.
No, it was like all sort of bucket list, amazing, amazing stuff. And Ashley and I played a little acoustic show after we finished our sessions, like in London, that we announced like, I don't know, it was like 2 weeks before on a weeknight or whatever. And people showed up. It was like 400 people that
Wow, that's
we had
great, man.
yeah, we had like, it was such
Wow.
a wonderful surprise and incredible experience. And it was like one of the last things we all did before the pandemic happened. It was January 2020.
Crazy.
And then we did one more thing, which was we did that concert one more time at PAX East, like at the end of February 2020. And like the next week everybody was in lockdown. Like it was crazy. Like at the end, the following Friday, Supergiant's like, okay, we're not going into the office anymore. So
That's
yeah,
wild, man.
right under the wire there.
Imagine being able to go and play concerts for work. That must be incredible, dude. That is
Yeah,
and
it's awesome.
I got to ask, did you take the picture? You know, the obligatory I'm Abbey Road
Yeah.
photo.
Oh yeah, I took it.
Good.
Yeah, the crosswalk. Yeah,
Awesome.
yeah, and
Hell
other
yeah.
ones too. I took a couple of real good obligatory Abbey Road photos.
Amazing, man. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So, one of the last things I wanted to speak about, and I realize it might be sort of a sensitive subject for you, so I
Mm,
don't want to bring up any emotional things. But I mean, one of the most heartbreaking things for me when watching the documentary of making Hades was
mm,
when, unfortunately, your studio, which looks just gorgeous, by the way, and your studio in your own section, you know,
yeah.
inside of your offices, it just looks awesome. But unfortunately, like it seemed to have taken a lot of damage, and we don't need to talk about why that's happening. I think all of us understand what's going on right now in the world, but
Hmm.
I mean, still, dude, that seemed like I mean, my instruments are my babies, you know.
Yeah.
So, have
Yeah.
you been able to sort of recover from that now that it's been a little bit of time? I mean, I hope everything's going okay in regards to that.
Yeah, no, it was okay. And honestly, I was glad that they took the shiny instruments instead of the more valuable. Like they didn't take our like server, you know what I mean? Like the stuff that actually would have been more valuable but harder to replace and much more damaging to us. So, yeah, we have insurance. The instruments, we're just replacing them now. I just picked up, like, I'm very excited. I got like a Moog Matriarch today. Like, I just brought it home. Haven't even
Nice.
played it yet, and it's sitting over there. I got to figure out where to put it because I don't have room for it. But anyway, no. So like we're replacing the instruments. It's totally okay. The only one only one of those things had sentimental value to me, which was the Strat that got stolen. It was like my first nice guitar. I got it as a teenager. I've had it since, and I've played it on every single thing I've ever done, basically, in some just at least a little bit. And that got stolen. That was a bummer. But again, it's like you can buy a new Strat. They make Strats still. It's not. There
For
was a
sure.
guitar. There was a guitar that was like kind of a custom-y guitar that this guy in New York made, that I really thought was awesome and cool. Um, it's not like the best guitar on the planet, but it's just not. It was just kind of a one of a kind thing. So that was a bummer to get stolen. But I got a different thing. So I'm gonna be getting I think I'm gonna be getting the replacements for all that stuff actually this week. It's taken a while to replace everything, but yeah. So it's okay. And all the stuff that was at the office was stuff that I had some kind of duplicate of in some form or fashion at my house. So I have electric guitars here. I have a bass here. I have all the like things I need here still. So it was just sort of, it was stuff that was there for space reasons that it wasn't in my house. Does that make sense? So
No, it totally does. And I guess the
so
reason
yeah,
I bring it up is because
yeah,
now that I've gotten to speak to you for an hour, I realize that it's not just Danny's filmmaking that paints you as just an amazing, genuinely nice person. You actually are. And I have to assume that all of your coworkers are as well. And so I was like, man, that really, like, if I felt the hit of that, you know,
yeah, 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 yeah,
I just felt bad. So I wanted to make sure that
yeah.
you guys were doing all good and stuff
It
from that.
it's it is what it is. It's like it's a bummer, but it's not the end of the world. And I was pleased that, again, I was glad that they tried to take my computer and they didn't, because it was like, because my rat's nest of cables was like too messed up and they couldn't like untangle the power cord from my, like, it was clear they tried to
So
take my computer.
basically, you just said, don't ever come at me for cable management.
Yeah, cable management is for chumps, is
Yeah,
what I just heard.
so the computer, like, would have been much harder to replace and more expensive and blah blah blah, like, and so at least I still have the computer. It's not the end of the world. And they
So
didn't
cool.
end up taking it, too much of value other than the instruments. I don't think so. Um, it's just like shiny stuff that's like I can sell that.
Yeah,
It's like
nothing
yeah,
that can't be replaced. And besides, it all happens in
yeah,
here, it seems, anyway. So,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
well, then the last thing, man, and then Andrew probably has like one question too, or maybe a few more. We'll keep them quick though.
Mhm.
The pandemic sort of has changed the way everyone works and operates as a company. And I know that in the documentary, at least, you guys sort of were speaking a lot about like it's going well, and thankfully, where you were at with Hades at that point in time, it
Yeah.
was okay. It wasn't ideal, but it was okay to be in that situation where you work remotely. But now I would assume that a new project is on the horizon, and that spontaneity of being in the office in your studio, right? There's something that's lost there that you don't quite get over a Zoom call, where you can't just walk down the hall and go to your art director and be like, hey, what about this, that, and the other thing? So like, can you maybe pair that with the future of Supergiant, and what to expect?
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see. We've been it's it's certainly much too early for us to talk about whatever we're doing next, just because we don't really have a crystal clear idea of that at the moment. We've been so
Hmm.
busy with continuing to support Hades and figure that stuff out. Just because of the response has warranted a much longer sort of
Yeah.
tail of support and
I was gonna say
interviews.
I'm still like Hades was just on sale, like barely on sale on Steam the other
Yeah,
day,
yeah,
because it's just like, hey, check out this game.
yeah. I
Still
mean,
getting blasted everywhere, rightfully so.
yeah. So I think that's the thing where we'll see how it goes. I'm confident that we will be able to do it. I think there will be some things that we have to find a replacement for somehow, like the you know daily, like, hey, you want to go get a coffee, and I'll go with Greg, and we'll take a walk, and we'll chat about this idea, and just stuff, random stuff, and then we'll be like, oh, there's this idea I had. But again, it's like you can do that other ways. It's not, you know, it's not the only way to do that. It's just the way that we have done it. So I think it'll be one of those things where, like, we'll find a way to get through that.
Cool. Hell yeah, man. Looking forward to it. And before I let Andrew ask you the last
Absolutely.
question, tell us about your band, Control Group. Like,
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sure it's just like a project of passion, but I think people should hear about it.
yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's me and a couple friends of mine. And we formed when I was living in Brooklyn. We were all living in Brooklyn, and now none of us are living in Brooklyn. Actually, we're all in three different places. But it's just like yeah, it's such a fun little thing. It's a three-piece, and we all play all the instruments and kind of rotate around, and everybody writes and everybody sings, and we would do these. We would get together, and we'd play writing games where we'd be like, okay, we have to write a song in 15 minutes, go. you know and we'd have different rules for, like, for how we would operate. Like, okay, you're in charge. Like, you're in charge of somebody else's part. Like, you're not in charge of your own part, and you have to play whatever someone else tells you. Stuff
That's
like that.
awesome.
um yeah, like, really, we'd always, it's just like a lot of fun mixing it up. And one of the coolest things we did as a band was, we I saw online that Steve Albini, like, he was given a talk, in Australia somewhere, being interviewed, and I saw he's like, yeah, you can just book my studio, and, like, I'll record your band if you just go to the website of my studio. And Steve Albini is this incredible legendary engineer who recorded In Utero and Surfer Rosa and all these, like, incredible albums that I really respect. And uh Breeders and a bunch of other stuff. And I emailed my bandmates and was like, yo, we can go. You guys want to record with Steve Albini? Like, should we just go do this? So we met. We were all not living in the same place, but we all met in Chicago, and we had two songs prepared that we were going to write over the course of a 3-day recording session, or that we were going to record. Sorry, we'd already written them, and then we planned to write and record three more while we were there. uh and we did. I mean, and we had them mixed by the end. It was like rock and roll sleepaway camp, because they have dorms in the studio, and we got to, like, sleep in the studio. And, like, we'd work from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. with Steve, and then, like, we'd go out and get some dinner, and then we'd come back and just, like, write lyrics until 2 a.m. and dial in guitar sounds for the next day. And, like, it's just like, it's like one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. Yeah, it was so much fun. um and yeah, I'd love to do it again. But yeah, we're working on a new album, with some tracks that we recorded before I moved away. And I'm just kind of slowly trying to put mixes together, for these tracks we've had sitting around forever. So yeah. Oh, and we donate all of the proceeds from the band to the ACLU.
Oh,
So
very
that's
cool.
Awesome.
Yep.
Nice, man. Yeah, I'm a huge Nirvana fan, so that's damn, dude, you have a lot of stuff in your history to geek out about. That's really cool.
Yeah, that was
True.
a crazy one. That was really fun.
All right,
Yeah.
now before I get to the last question, I have a question. When I say best video game soundtracks, what games come to mind for you?
Yeah,
You
for
said
me,
Marble Madness.
yeah,
Or Marble Mania.
Marble
Whatever,
Madness.
whichever.
Yeah, that's one of my
Madness,
favorites.
yep.
Yeah, I mean, I really love the music from Fallout 2 specifically. I really also, even though it's just like it's a very simple soundtrack, but it's so effective. I really love the Plants vs Zombies soundtrack, like the original one.
Okay, yeah.
I
I hear you.
Yeah, I just really love the vibe of that. It's like the tone of that super fun.
I mean, it knows what it's got to do, you know?
Yeah, I also for like the next game, George Fan's next game, Octageddon, which came out a few years back. That's like a really ridiculous game, and the music is kind of like pirate metal almost. A lot of it, and it's got like a really
Why
fun.
did that make me think of Dropkick Murphys?
Yeah, it absolutely kind of has a Dropkick Murphys vibe, but like more metal,
Right.
That one's really fun. Gosh, I mean, I really love Abzu. The music from Abzu is incredible.
That one was like a crazy experience, Abzu.
Yeah.
Just like very, very immersive. Kind of
Yeah.
like the art version of Subnautica.
Yeah, it's incredible, and Austin's soundtrack for that is maybe my favorite of his. I like his work a lot, but that one is like
Journey is cool, but Abzu hits different.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's how I feel. Journey is beautiful, but Abzu, like, that was more in line with stuff that I love.
Right.
And yeah, I thought just like I'm a big harp fan, so that soundtrack is like
Absolutely.
70% harp or whatever, so
Yeah.
I'm into
And
it.
then all the pretty little fishes kind of help.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, so now we have one final question that we ask every guest.
Mhm.
We're kind of gonna put you on the spot, so don't get nervous.
Sorry about that. It's kind of our thing.
If you had to describe yourself as an artist, musician, creator, whatever you want to call it, in one word, what one word would you use to describe yourself? And you can elaborate afterwards.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, a single word to describe myself as an artist. Curious.
That's a good one.
Yeah,
I
definitely see that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really interested in trying to find the edge of my comfort zone and just go like a few paces past whatever that is, and just kind of keep doing that. And so yeah, I mean, I'm always interested in trying stuff and expanding what my wheelhouse includes, and just playing with new toys and new tools and new methods. And yeah, so yeah, I think curious is probably a pretty solid one.
Yeah, I mean, talking to you for this past hour and change, it seems like you do value the how and the why of things like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of music.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, Darren, dude, thank you so much. Before we let you go, is there anything we missed along your journey that you want to let the people know about?
I think that's about it. We covered the highlights, that's for sure. Yeah.
I mean, we talked about you being the reigning Rock Band world champion, so I think that's pretty much
what
the
more
most
do you need?
important thing.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, dude, this was an absolute honor and a blast to chat with you. Thank you again so much for carving out some time of your day to come on our show.
Awesome.
And before we let you go, where can the people find you, follow you, keep up to date with everything you do creatively?
For sure. Yeah, I'm at Darren Korb on Twitter and Instagram, and you can find me on the Facebook stuff as well, and at Supergiant Games is a good one, because if you want to know anything related to the games, there's that. And then yeah, those are the main ones. At Control Group, well, it's at CTRL Group Music, I think. But that one's not very active, so follow it if you want. But Control Group is the band, if you want to find out more about.
And you're on Spotify and all that stuff too, right?
Spotify, yeah, yep, on
Perfect.
Spotify and Apple Music and all the whole shebang, the whole thing.
Love it. Well, Darren, thank you again so much. We're gonna put you to the lobby. If you got a busy day ahead of you, don't be bashful. Just head on out, and if not, we'll chat for a few seconds afterwards. But either way, we really want you to know we appreciate it.
We'll hit you up when the next game comes out to talk about it.
Awesome, sounds good.
Thanks, man. Andrew,
Wow.
dude, we are just getting so lucky lately with these amazingly
I gotta
gracious
relax, man.
and
That was a lot.
just talented guests, right? I mean, come on,
Yeah.
like, it's great. I mean, I know we do this show for them, but like, I don't know, it
We
kind of
don't.
felt like,
It's a selfish show.
yeah, I guess so, because
It's
that
you
was
know
just such a blast, man.
we're
We
just
need
lucky
to
that everyone benefits from the show, I guess.
we need to up our game when getting creative for our new project. Is all that I really got from
Yeah,
this, because we're in a
absolutely.
very interesting
If
position right
if
now
when
where
people ask us to describe what we sound like, if we don't use at least 4 separate adjectives that don't have anything to do with each other, then I don't think we've done enough.
that's for certain. But even just like, I love what he said, man. I go to the edge of what I know, and then I push a little further, essentially.
For sure. That's the only way you grow.
Yeah. No, that's powerful, man. And I really enjoyed this episode, guys. We hope that you did as much as we did. It was an absolute blast chatting with Darren, and we have so many more great episodes for you as well. We've been doing a lot on this show, and if you haven't been with us, if you're just tuning in today, well, hey, thank you so much for being here. That really does
Thank
truly
you.
mean a lot. We don't say it enough at the end of these things because we're usually just so shocked about what we just did for the past hour,
still
especially
on
with the
that
guests we've
high,
been getting.
you know?
But we do appreciate it nonetheless. The show's been growing, and
Absolutely.
that's all because of people like you. So thank you so much for giving us your time. And Andrew, where
We
can they
appreciate it.
invest some of their time into us if they would be so gracious as to impart that on us?
Yes, absolutely. Well, again, like Chris said, thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. I know that we just said that we do this show for us, but really that was, we do bits. It's really for you guys. We like to just, like Darren said, you make stuff. You just want to make stuff. For you, and if you want to find our other episodes that we've done, we have, in my opinion, a lot of pretty great episodes. Besides this one, they're all on all the digital streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Radio Public, Stitcher. Is Breaker a real one? I know we say a lot of fake ones, but
Breaker's a real one.
Breaker's a
Spreaker
real
is a
one.
real one. Spreaker is not a real one.
Wait, Spreaker is also a real one?
Yeah, Spreaker's real.
Wow.
I'm almost sure it's real. Honestly, I can't keep track at this point. There's too many.
Yeah.
We're on all the different little intricate
We're on them.
podcasting,
We're there. Talking with
mom
Andrew
and pop
Chris.
podcasting services.
Yeah, there you go. Talking with Andrew and Chris, you'll find it there. Please subscribe to the YouTube so you can see our faces, our guest faces. We do little visual bits. We do things like this with our hands. You can't see that on Spotify. So follow us. I'm sorry, subscribe. I don't even know what service I'm talking about anymore. Subscribe. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think.
Join in on the conversation.
Join in on the conversation. Speaking of which, follow our Instagram accounts and the shows. It's like this right here, Talkin'. I don't remember how to move my finger. Talkin' Podcast. No G.
Yeah.
TALKIN.
On Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, anywhere else that matters, like Andrew just said. And I did say at the beginning of this, I'm working on cutting him off. I didn't say I was better at it yet. So
that's true. And while you're doing all that for our show, be sure to look at Talkin' TV and all of those exact same places, spelled the exact same way. Just add TV after Talkin'.
You really got to stop at this point, because I'm telling you, I've had conversation after conversation with Dom, my co-host over there, and he will not reference our show. And it's like, dude, I thought we were all friends going into this, same network, same family. Apparently not. So
Listen,
Andrew, you're too nice.
I think it's because of the StreamYard thing. It's like his
thing. Yeah, true. And you kind of are a little. You're like a bad, renter sometimes, but it's okay because we get it done.
I'm not the best.
Yeah, guys. That's at Talkin', TALKIN, for this show, and at Talkin' TV for my other show. You can find me and Andrew both at our personals, aptly listed below our names. But if you're on audio, it's at Christian Evanko and at @AWGYOMAI. Guys, we love doing the show. We love doing the show for you. We have a lot on the horizon. The podcast has always been the first step for us. Music really is our number one passion and our love, and we will be getting back to it. But your reception, the way you guys have been sort of treating the show lately, has made the podcast, honestly, more than I ever thought it could be, as far as, creative juices and energies and what I contribute to it. So, yeah, from a musician who never thought he'd be a podcaster to having a podcast that people love, thank you so much. Really does mean a lot.
Really appreciate that.
Andrew, any last sentiment for the people here today?
Hmm.
Take your time.
I don't really have anything clever, but go out of your comfort zone every now and then. You might learn something. And stay sweet.